Well, I never thought I'd be doing a vlog in the Halifax Borough Market talking about a speedway meeting in Manchester on a day when it's like 30 plus degrees, but here goes. It might not be that long, but hopefully it'll be of some interest to some people. So last night's meeting in Manchester was Bellevue Aces versus Ipswich Witches in the, I think it's called, is it still called the Roe Motor Oil Premiership? Something like that anyway. Very warm evening last there, and the track stood up well to the conditions, really, considering it was very dusty, and by the end it did look like I'd been tangoed. But it was very enjoyable still, and pretty one-sided match, not a very good crowd. We stand on the back straight looking across to the main grandstand, and it looked pretty empty. Now, whether that's been impacted by the heat, by the Football World Cup being on, or just the fact that people have spent all the money on the Grand Prix meetings earlier in the month when they had the 2 rounds at Manchester. So it could be that. Plus, they've also got 3 league meetings on the bounce. So last week they were at home to Leicester Lions, and next Monday they're at home to Kings Lynn Stars. So it might be the fact that people are picking and choosing. Ipswich's lineup is not the most attractive. They've got decent riders, but they haven't got any top riders like they had last season when they had Jason Doyle, who ironically is now on a short-term contract with Bellevue and missed last night's meeting through injury, but we'll come on to that. And also Emil Saisutinov, who's a big draw for a lot of Speedway fans. But yeah, so the meeting itself started off with, I think Bellevue had the choice of gates in the first race, took gates 1 and 3. They got off to a good start with a victory for Brady Kurtz in the first race. Tom Brennan was riding number 1 for Ipswich, former Bellevue rider and wildcard for the recent Manchester Grand Prix. He struggled last night. He only scored 3 points from his 4 rides. Didn't get any criticism from he will have got some criticism from the Ipswich fans, but I have my own friends criticising him because saying he weren't performing, he could be for the chop. I think that's a bit harsh, but you never know with Speedway. They change for teams like they change their underwear, so it's got to be a possibility they might get rid of him. He's not been performing as a number 1 for large parts of this season, and it's not because he can't ride the Bellevue track, because obviously he used to ride for them, and when he rode in the Grand Prix he performed reasonably well considering it was a step up in ability for him. But yeah, he got some criticism, and generally Bellevue were just on the game. They were making it out of the starts. The Ipswich riders weren't getting out of the starts. There were some good races. I think there were one in particular where all 4 riders were involved. In fact, it involved Brennan. I think it was heat 11. Yes, it was. So it was. I think it was Kilderman who was taking a rider replacement ride for Jason Doyle, and it was Tate Zischka, Brennan, and Danny King. Danny King had a really good meeting for Ipswich. Like I said, the final score was 62-28 to Bellevue, but for Ipswich, Danny King scored, I think, 11 points. Scored 10 from his first 4 rides. He tailed off a little bit in his last 2 rides, but he was up against the top riders from Bellevue. So it was a bit tougher for him there. But he put in a good performance, but he was the only one of Ipswich riders who did put in anything like a top performance or decent performance. There weren't any of us at all really thinking about it who performed. I can't think every rider scored more than 4 or 5 points. For Bellevue, Brady Kurtz scored a paid maximum, 14 and a bonus. Zach Cook was the outstanding rider last night. He scored 16 and 1 from 6 rides. Kilderman, I think, scored 11 and 3 from 6 rides. It was actually Cook and Kilderman who come out in the nominated riders race, the Heat 15. They decided to give Kurtz a rest because there was such a large margin of victory. They felt it was a good opportunity to give the slightly lesser riders a chance to perform in the final race of the night, but they still managed to get a 5-1 over King and Tobias Muzalak, who's again not quite performing at the levels you expect from him. And if him and Brennan aren't performing, they're supposed to be Ipswich's top 2 riders. So if they didn't perform and been a bit inconsistent this season, been good at home, but Ipswich's track so much different to Bellevue. Ipswich's track is so much smaller, and Bellevue are actually at Ipswich on Thursday night. So they'll be hoping that Jason Doyle's back from injury then. But having seen how he looked when he was taken off the track in the Grand Prix on Saturday night in Wrocław in Poland, I've got to say there's got to be a doubt about him missing another meeting. He was never really going to be able to ride last night. I could see how he looked like he didn't know what day it was when he took him off the track on Saturday night. So to expect him to ride again on the Monday was probably a bit too much, really. So we'll have to see if he's fit for Thursday, because he rode for Ipswich, the track specialist. He is a top rider, former world champion, so it'll be tough for Bellevue without him on Thursday, I reckon. But in my opinion, they'll need to have a guest. They can't go with rider placement at Ipswich if they want to get the bonus point, because although they won by a significant amount last night, The meeting on Thursday is actually the reverse of the A match, which has already been ridden, and Bellevue won that one 51-39. So the way Bellevue normally perform at Vauxhall, the Ipswich track, they're going to need a decent performance from someone, as well as Kurtz, who's not always that great, to be fair, at Ipswich, because 12 points won't be a big enough margin to secure the bonus point, I don't think. So we'll see how it pans out. But like I say, last night, good performance all round by Bellevue. I've got to say, Tate, Zishka, Norwich, Bildon. Bildon got 9, I think, in a bonus or something like that. Zishka got 8, I think, in a bonus, and Will Cairns got 4 in a bonus. Mark Lemon, the Bellevue manager, said he thought that Will Cairns has been better than what he'd expected so far, so that's been a bonus. Tate's looking more like the rider he was going to be before he had his bad accident the season before last. He wasn't that great last year. He's not riding in Poland this year. He's concentrating purely on riding in the UK, so he's benefited from that. So good all-round performance, and 2 weeks in a row that Bellevue have hit 60 now. They'll be hoping for a similar score against Kingsley next week. Be a bit tougher. They've got Max Frick as their main rider. They've also got Chris Harris, who's been performing more like his normal self in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, good evening out. Me and Chris and Mark and Nigel had a good time, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to this, and may do one next Monday as well, or Tuesday, depending on time and stuff. So that's all I've got to say for now. So bye for now.